I'm going to start this episode of Weekly Off because fuck you, Jay.
Hey, man, that's aggressive.
Actually,
aggressive
I don't
right now.
deserve to start off the podcast because I'm still playing Plants vs. Zombies. But here, I'll pause this here.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
I was killing it, by the way.
Hey, man, we did people won't know. Well, I mean, I guess people will know. But we did a 2.5 hour video podcast yesterday.
Ew, gross.
A Q&A thing. Did you have fun doing that?
I had a lot of fun doing it. I don't know. We might have taken too long to answer all the questions.
Know what? You know what's weird about that? I knew you were going to have that approach.
Are people going to enjoy it?
I think so. I mean, look, why are we still going over this? We don't care about what people think. And not only that, hey,
I care.
Look to your left. Look what's on my record player.
Socks?
No.
My Subway
Your
bag?
Subway bag from yesterday. I just came in here and I said, that motherfucker.
And you have two socks that don't match.
One of those is Kayla's. One of those is also Kayla's. You know what's funny about that sock?
Your feet are incredibly small.
You know what's funny about that sock? I bought that sock for me.
You have the black ones.
I have about a 3-pack. Those we're looking at Nike dry fit socks. I bought a 3-pack in Frankfurt actually, and realized afterwards that I'd made a terrible mistake and they were too small.
I really wanted gray socks,
Okay.
so I bought a pair of gray.
You're on this Heather Gray kick lately because they're the best. It's the best color.
Well, no, I've always been about black socks. I've always favored black socks.
Very versatile. Business meetings, funerals,
Yeah,
everyday life.
exactly. If I wear Nike black socks with a suit, nobody can tell. Instead of having to buy an extra pair of suit socks, is that what you call them?
You know
Dress socks.
You know the problem with black socks? Look on my carpet. There's little black specks everywhere.
Yeah,
There's some lint.
but it doesn't. You can't tell when they get dirty. So I've always been a fan of black socks.
You can if you have a dog that sheds white hair.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Well, I don't call that dirty necessarily.
Right.
But anyway, I decided I was gonna take a break from black socks, go with gray. The shoes that I bought, which I'm currently wearing, are Nike, but the only gray socks I could find were Adidas. So I actually intentionally wear them lower. Like my socks are sagging on my feet so that you can't see the emblem. You can right this second, but that wasn't the intention. So
you know when socks get like too tight on you and you don't even realize it, and then you come home and you take them off and you have like that indention from the socks? I hate that.
That's a common problem with because I usually wear tall socks.
Why does that happen? So do I.
That's a common problem.
Why does that happen?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
You know what? I'll tell you something though. One thing that helped is that I would wash my socks. Originally, I would wash my socks and underwear in warm water, wash them in the cold water, and then they're not as tight when you put them on. Because Nike dry fit socks have a tendency to. Some Nike dry fit socks are very difficult for me to put on. I have to like stretch them out.
Right.
And it's a whole ordeal. But I started washing them in cold water, and that changed everything. Thank you, Christian Harlow.
So I'm not saying I'm right about this, but I, for most of my life, have not followed any rules for doing laundry. I just wash everything together. Darks, lights, red. Don't give a fuck.
Same.
And yeah, it's gotten a little bit different now.
Doesn't matter, does it?
It definitely doesn't matter. But
doesn't.
But I am taking. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but we've
Starbucks.
Well, that too. But we've talked about taking care of your t-shirts before. I am taking care of them a little bit differently now. I've done my research even more in depth than just us talking about it here. Just to follow up on it, your 100% cotton shirts, never put them in the dryer. Never.
Ever.
Now, if they're a poly blend, this is what I've learned. If they're a poly blend, like if they're a 50-50 shirt, you can look on the tag that's a 50% polyester, 50% cotton. You can wash those. You can dry them in the dryer because polyester really doesn't shrink that much. But if you want them to hold up as best as they can, dry them on low to when they come out a little damp. And then one of the biggest problems with hang drying shirts is that they get that weird wrinkle in them. The hang dry
wrinkle.
A weird wrinkle? Yeah, sometimes they get that stiffness and that weird wrinkle.
Some of my shirts, I have a lot of black V-necks, and the way that they hang on the hanger, I have a loose back of my neck.
Yes, I hate that.
It's so weird. And it's only a couple of the shirts.
This method That's why I stopped hang drying them, except for the 100% cotton. But
Yeah.
this will help it a little bit because you get best of both worlds. You get that sort of tightness of the drying.
I'm glad we're talking about this. Sometimes we recycle our conversations a little bit. But my friend Ryan Ucci, I was the other day just trying to give him about this whole spiel about t-shirts and not drying them and blah blah blah. Because I think he bought one of our shirts and he was disappointed that
I don't
it
blame
no
him.
longer.
I don't blame him.
I told him, I said, Ryan, you know better. If you listen to our podcast, you know better not to do that. And he's like, those shirts are just really cheap. It's like, okay, maybe, but
it's not that they're really cheap. They're actually decent quality shirts. But here's what I will say about them. And this is okay. Why don't these people just use fucking Gildan shirts? Gildan is one of the cheapest.
You talking about TeePublic?
Yeah, Gildan is one of the cheapest shirts to print on, but that is not representative of its quality. There's a reason why so many people use Gildan, not just because of the price, but because it holds up very well. But people, for a long time, you remember back in the day when band shirts used to all be printed on American Apparel?
Yeah.
Like, there became this thing that the shirts just had to be super soft. And it's just like, God, they don't always have to be like that. Because when you start cutting corners for softness, they just become thin, like paper thin. Like the white shirts. Fuck those white shirts, okay?
Our white
Yes.
shirts? Yeah. They're
Look,
see-through. You can see my back hair.
Here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I'm going to give everybody an update on merchandise. So, first of all, if you're listening to this on a Monday, this is your very last day to buy the July exclusive t-shirt. If you're listening to this after Monday, that shirt's gone.
It's the Summer Illuminati shirt?
Yes, and we will be having a new shirt coming in, which I still need to figure out
Jay.
for August. I tried working on that this morning.
We got to do our Thrones shirt.
That's right. I'm going to work on that too. Also in October, we are dropping our fall line, which I'm super, super excited for. I haven't done any of the designs, but the designs that I have in my head so far are dope, or at least that I want to do. The other thing I want to say about the merchandise is that I want to experiment with some other vendors. Now, we can use other vendors that are the exact same as TeePublic that just offer some different things. I think maybe we should try those out on our own, just like test them and see what we like. But there may be an opportunity for you to get our merchandise from multiple different vendors in the future. So,
but that'll be awesome for us, but we'll probably only promote one.
Absolutely.
And if it comes down to probably just the one that's the best.
Absolutely.
That way we're not talking about, TeePublic.
I've actually been I've been happy with TeePublic just in general. I want to. It's too hot for me to buy like their hoodies, their crew necks. That's what I want to get into.
Yeah, I've had. I typically wear a large sweatshirt, and I bought a large Star Wars sweatshirt last year to wear to Rogue One, and it ended up being way too big. So right now I'm trying to figure out what my hoodie size is for them. But usually in a sweatshirt or hoodie, I actually wear a large, but I wear medium any other time. So
I'm a taller guy, and
you're a taller guy.
The sweatshirts have the same problems that the t-shirts do. If they're crappy quality, they shrink as well, and they end up
ride up
super high. Yeah. I bought just for shits and giggles. Like I wear like an extra large hoodie just for shits and giggles from work. They asked me because I don't wear the stuff that work buys me, and they were like, "Oh, what a crew neck sweater do you want?" And I was like, "I'm going to test out the tall long sleeve shirt that I got. Nice. I also got just to test it out, a 2XL crew neck, which fit me like a goddamn trash bag. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was so big on me, but I've shrank it.
Worn a lot of trash bags.
I've shrank it like crazy. And it actually works. It still looks too big to go out in, but it's nice to sort of lounge around the house. All right. Before we get into everything else.
Are we already done talking about shit?
We're done with that. I want to transition to something else.
Same.
Hey, man. I'm going to be 30 soon. That's weird.
Do I have to do anything for you?
I was thinking about that today.
Me doing something for you, or you being 30?
The answer is no. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Thank you.
However, I will remind you that I am the only friend that bought you anything.
It's true.
For your last birthday.
I felt terrible because
terrible?
I didn't.
You felt terrible?
I didn't forget Kayla's birthday, but I misplaced Kayla's birthday.
Oh yeah.
So I felt bad about it.
I felt tolerable too.
Yeah. Just tolerable.
Anyways, I was thinking about it today, and The only thing that I have planned is it's a milestone birthday. I feel like other people are going to be treating it like that. I just want to go eat at a nice restaurant. And there's a nice restaurant that I'm going to go to with my family. And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, maybe
Go to Chili's?
Maybe I should throw something at the house. And then I thought about it and I was like, throwing parties for yourself is a little depressing.
That's not true at all.
Okay.
It's not true.
Okay. Should I have people over? Should I invite? Would Eric come?
It depends. You would have to put it. It would definitely have to be on a weekend.
Yeah.
Where he could kind of
it
plan
would definitely
out.
be on a weekend. It'd be on a Saturday.
You would have to probably give him advance notice. That way he could ask off of work. So, do you want to go ahead and plan the party right here, right now?
I mean, my birthday is
right now. Luke is like, are they going to invite me?
My birthday, if he wants to come down, he can. My birthday is on September 7th, which is a Thursday, but it would be a Saturday party. And people, I would also make my friend John come because, not just because he's one of my best friends, but also because he's the only one that I trust to start that fire.
Yeah. He's a man.
Yeah. Who else would we invite? Cody Ray Hecker. It's the only reason he would come to see us.
That's all I got.
Those are the only people.
I mean, I could invite some of my friends if you want to meet new friends.
Well, some of your friends have become my friends.
I'm talking about like Goodman. What about Sturgill? You want to drink with Sturgill?
For a second, when you said Goodman, I almost said the one with the baby.
That's Sturgill.
I know. No, I don't know them very, very well.
Yeah, I know. I could get you some new friends if you want.
No, I mean,
I can't promise you'll like them.
I have plenty of people. The people that invited me down to the river for the river metal thing.
For the what?
For the river metal show. The people that invited me down there, they could come. Remember last week I told you the story about going to
the word river
show?
Was never used. It was like
down,
a farm
it was
with
down,
skulls on
it was down by the river.
I didn't know that part at all.
I could invite them. Hung out with them last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do it.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I'll be there. A lot of milestones happening. Jay, you turned 30. I just recently quit my job of 5 years. It's going to be our 1 year shortly after your birthday. It'll be Sight and Sound's 1 year birthday. So we got to do something special for that as well.
I know. Is 30 the year that I go through an early midlife crisis and quit the podcast? No, that's not true. That won't happen.
Another opportunity where Luke was like, are they going to ask me?
No, I was just going to start another one with Volpe.
That's true. Volpe, listen.
No one knows who Volpe is yet.
They will.
They will.
They will. They should anticipate your music episode with Volpe because it comes out the day after this does, right?
Yeah.
Aren't you putting it out on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Volpe, this situation is hilarious.
Wait, do we call... Okay, let me just address this. I want to call him Volpe, and here's why.
Brand recognition.
No offense. Julian doesn't roll off the tongue. Volpe rolls off the tongue.
Hey, I mean... That's probably why he picked the name, because it sounds good.
Yeah, he was surprised that I could pronounce it right, which I was like, okay,
well, I mean,
pretty good at pronouncing things.
If you follow him, you've probably heard him say it, because he's...
Also just know, I just know that that's how you say that word.
And we know phonics. We're hooked on phonics.
Okay.
The thing about Volpe, or Julian, I've been trying to get him on this podcast for a long time. I'm glad he's finally going to be on. I can't wait to hear. I wasn't a part of it, so I can't wait to listen to it as an audience member.
I can't wait for you to hear how excited we both get when we like stumble upon things that overlap.
Did you talk about me?
No, hardly at all. Actually, I don't think you were brought up once.
Excellent. Can't wait to hear it. I wanted to talk about real quick my comic book shop experience.
Okay.
I went into my local... I've got the bug, Jay, to read more comics. I go through phases. I go through phases where I don't care about comics and then I'm interested and then I actually sit down and read them. I've been reading Hush, the Batman Hush, and I went to my local comic book stop. Comic book stop. The place where I grew up, the place where I bought all my Pokemon cards.
Comixology?
No. My local comic book stop. Where I had all my Pokemon cards purchased and all my comics that I bought growing up. I haven't been there in several years. And since since they were at the original location, they have since moved to another location, and they had a bit of rebranding. And it was originally called Moonlight Comics, and now it's called Moonlight Gaming Center. So I haven't been there in a long time since they switched over. I went in, Jay, walked in thinking I was going to buy some comics, and it ended up just being one big room filled with folding tables and chairs where people could play tabletop games. There wasn't a single comic book in sight. There were a couple of shelves for used video games, and then like a counter display where they had like Magic the Gathering cards, collector's cards, things like that, some Funko Pops, and that was it. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I don't know if you grew up in a particular comic book shop, or if anyone else listening to this grew up in a particular comic book shop, but it was devastating.
Yeah,
it was a harsh reality. I was so upset. As soon as I walked in and considered the landscape, I considered just turning around and walking out, but I couldn't do that because that would have felt horrible.
Right?
Because the room was so open, they would have seen me do it. So I went in there and acted like I was doing something. I went to go check out some of the Xbox 360 games, which I have no business playing, but I saw a couple titles that I was nostalgic about, so I purchased them just so I could leave with something because I felt so bad.
Yeah, that's crazy to me that's the case. I find it fascinating because there's plenty of comic book shops in Lexington, but the whole tabletop gaming, whatever you want to call it, this whole phenomenon of coming back to fruition. I remember the days of middle school when I remember getting into Pokemon cards, and I didn't really get into Magic that much, but maybe I've just been out of touch, but it just like wasn't a thing for a really long time. And now it's all of a sudden a thing again. I have a friend that I work with for a while that I used to ask, like, hey man, what are you doing tonight? You want to hang out? You want to go do something? And he said, no, I have a tabletop gaming group that I'm a part of, and every Friday we get together, which, sounds cool. Like, that sounds cool if that's like your thing, some camaraderie, but that's just not my thing. That's not my bag. But I feel like a big part of the resurgence, there's like a whole, whatever you think about this pop culture discussion landscape, there's like a whole niche group on YouTube and podcasts. They're like podcasts that cover this stuff. They do like play alongs and stuff. How do you feel about that?
That's something that like Emma Fife does.
I was about to say Emma Fife
on Twitch.
Yeah.
I don't get.
Should we be on Twitch? I think we should totally be on Twitch. Not playing games.
I did a couple videos.
Not playing games. Podcasting on Twitch. Yes, the answer is yes.
We'll talk about Patreon later. How's there money in it? That's what I was wondering.
What?
I walked into Moonlight and I'm thinking, how are they making money with games? And you could ask the same question with comic books, I guess.
Well, I think we just don't know that much about it. I mean, I always thought there's like new campaigns that come out, new books, like figures.
I'm talking about how are you making money having a building for people to come and play these things together?
I mean,
how is that?
Just what I said. You sell the items, and maybe you have like tournaments. Maybe you have to pay some sort of membership to be a part of certain things, buy-ins for, I don't know. I'm imagining.
This should open up a comic book coffee shop.
Should we start like I joked around that I thought your commentary on just like folding tables and whatnot there was like it was like a shitty establishment, and I thought to myself, should there be like a bar rescue for comic book shops? And then I thought about it. That would be a great idea for a show.
I would love to watch it, that's for sure. But anyway, I checked out a comic book shop in Lexington too, because we had the idea, and by we I mean I had the idea to do a show live at a comic book shop. So I went and checked one out earlier today, and it was pretty cool. It was a lot better than going to Barnes & Noble.
Yeah. Or Joseph Beth, which is where we went.
Oh, my God.
Local chain.
I got that Joseph Beth experience pissed me off so much. Not only did they have one just little shelf of comic books, but like 3 guys started hovering around me when I was trying to browse. And I heard one of them was like, what they ask? Oh, is Star Wars a Marvel comic?
Yeah.
I said, fuck you, get out of here.
Yeah.
I didn't actually say that, but I wanted to. I mean, is that bad of me? I only got upset at that because I'm like I'm aware of what I'm looking at, and I was trying to do that, and then these three outsiders were like, let's think what this is over here. Oh, is Star Wars a Marvel comic?
Here's my take on that. I think that there are people who are probably trying to get into comic books, and maybe that's what those people were, and they just didn't have that knowledge. But if they're not, like if they're just like if we were to talk to them and say, "Hey, do you like comic books?" and they said yes, and we got around to that point in the conversation where they said to themselves, "Star Wars is a Marvel comic," then I would have said, "Let's rewind this conversation to where I asked you, are you into comic books?" Because you're clearly not.
It was only because I was already frustrated with him.
Right.
And then I heard that question and it was instantly me being dumb. But if anybody else asked, then I would have been nice.
Yeah, we out here though.
Okay.
Let's get into some shit. I asked you what our topics were going to be. To scrounge together some movie and television topics. What are we starting off with?
Let's talk about
We're going to talk about music second, I'm assuming. Isn't that what we do? It's not the longest?
Music should be last.
Okay, yeah, the longest segment last.
Definitely. And that's music this week. Let's talk about movies.
Okay.
Get that out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want to just preview a couple of things. One being The Dark Tower, which what's the other movie that I wanted to preview?
It? Was it It? The two Stephen King films?
We could talk about it as well, but
how bizarre is that there's
Detroit, excuse me.
Oh yeah. How bizarre is it that there's two Stephen King movies coming out relatively soon?
Not very?
It's not.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
I just wanted to do a preview of some movies that are coming out, and so I want to talk about Dark Tower first because this is something that you're very passionate about. You're passionate about the franchise, the books and the graphic novels. And it's something that over the past few months you've been trying to get me into. In fact, you lent me a comic that I don't know where it is because I've since moved houses. But you've spoken very highly of this franchise, and I know a lot of Stephen King fans have to be excited for this movie to come out. I thought I was going to get excited for it. I thought this was going to be a sleeper this summer. I thought it was going to have the same like Guardians of the Galaxy type effect where it was going to come out in August and just crush. I was excited to see McConaughey and Idris Elba playing these characters. And the closer and closer we get, the less and less I care. And I think it's because I'm not hearing and feeling the hype anymore from all of the Stephen King fans.
There's a few reasons.
And that. I have... Not only am I not feeling the hype, the heat meter, if you will, but I'm also still not sure what the hell this movie is.
Let's talk about what this could be. And let me say one thing. You're correct in the sense that I'm very passionate about. I'm not passionate about the franchise because there are some books in this series that are just not good. There are elements of the series that are just not good. And that's on Stephen King. And I'm not going to get too far into that. Maybe in another day I'll talk about it. But the concept of it is fantastic. And the first book in this series, The Gunslinger, is amazing. It is absolutely incredible. The comic books, which are sort of a prequel to this whole thing, are also fantastic. Look, this has
comic books are the prequel to the movie or all of it?
Prequel. Look, let me just distinguish too. Nobody's 100% clear what this movie is. The first book in the story is The Gunslinger, which tells the tale of Roland Deschain's journey through the desert chasing after the Man in Black. And this movie, from what we've seen, has elements of multiple books. Like it shows things going on in a city, which doesn't even take place until the second book. Like it's just wacky. Nobody knows what it is. A lot of people are claiming, and I've seen reports claiming that this is like a sequel to the series, which why would you do that?
And they haven't even made like a TV movie.
Yeah.
Before. Like whereas like they've done a couple of iterations of The Stand, which I believe shares some of the same characters, right? Randall Flagg?
Randall Flagg is a character that is very prominent in a handful of Stephen King's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as far as...
Randall Flagg is the Man in Black.
Right. McConaughey.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, it just makes no sense. How...
Hang on. Let me say one thing real quick before you get into this. One of the reasons the heat meter, especially for me, is falling is because today in the modern era of movies, this has everything that you could possibly ask for to be a success. It has a book series. It has fantasy elements. It has elements that you could relate a little bit to Star Wars. Just the fact that gunslingers are sort of like a Western version of Jedi. Like all that sounds so badass that whenever like Marvel movies come out, you get these one shots with comic books and stuff that are like sort of prequels. And with the Star Wars movies, you get books that lead into them that sort of tie into things that sort of they elaborate on your experience, if that makes sense. And they could have capitalized on all of this. They could have done things on the internet to sort of get people more excited about it, to get people more familiar about it. Nobody is talking about this. Nobody is. Nobody is trying to get people excited about this. In my opinion, after seeing some of the more footage I see of this, the more this looks like a waste of my time.
And unfortunately, it's produced by Imagine, which is Ron Howard.
Right.
He didn't direct it, of course, and he's actually not listed as producer. But I mean, that's the production company behind it. Oh, excuse me, it is. I'm sorry. It is Brian Grazer and Ron Howard producing this. And Ron Howard was rumored to be directing this series for a long time,
which actually would have been he would have been a fantastic director for this project.
So it's unfortunate that even though he's still a part of it, it just doesn't seem to have the same appeal.
Yeah.
I'm also just confused. I mean, like everyone else, I'm confused, but it makes no sense as far as designing potential franchise.
This is also a project that was heavily discussed. It was going to be the next project from all of our boys on Lost. J.J. Abrams, Carlton Cuse, and what's his name?
I don't recall that.
It was 100% a
really?
thing. Yes, it was heavily discussed that their dream project following Lost was going to be an HBO series of The Dark Tower. I remember them talking about this a lot on the podcast, the Lost podcast, because it would come up like, what would be your dream project? Because of how influential The Stand was, this was...
Yeah. Did you know Damon Lindelof has never had a discussion with HBO about The Watchmen? Did you see that came out?
That's great. I hated that news story when it came out.
I loved it.
I thought it was one of the dumbest things that HBO could ever do. Why does HBO need to redo something that's already been done? They need their comic book property. Why would they regurgitate something that's already happening? They need to go farther outside of that. We've never had this discussion before, and you're shocked by my take. You know who did? You know, you cannot do a better version of Rorschach than what. I don't even really care for that movie.
Is your problem that HBO was doing it, or the fact that a Watchmen TV series would have existed?
Period. Especially on HBO. I think existing on HBO makes it worse.
I think I would take to a Watchmen TV series much more than I did the movie, without a doubt.
Absolutely, but the movie's been done, and it was done not that long ago, and it wasn't.
It doesn't matter.
It wasn't. It was done probably as best as it could have been.
So, what were we talking about? The Dark Tower. Yeah. Okay,
we ran out of things to say about that movie.
And the other unfortunate thing is that they haven't even, like, as far as I know, screened it. Like, there's no tomato meter yet.
There was some sort of thing at what's the thing that happens before WonderCon? I think they showed some like extended footage of something.
I don't remember, but I know that it seems that everyone's upset because a lot of the TV spots and trailers are kind of revealing everything, or at least it feels like it.
I don't think they're revealing anything. No one knows what the fuck this movie's about.
I've heard people say, I don't know because I quit watching the trailers. I saw the first trailer. Actually, I don't know if I've watched the trailer. I saw it when it leaked and the visual effects weren't finished yet, but I think that's all I've seen because I wanted to save it. Yeah. Maybe I did watch the first trailer. But anyway, I've heard that complaint, but it's just unfortunate that it's still embargoed, it seems, especially when the other movies that are coming out that weekend have already been screened a little bit. Like even Annabelle Creation, which comes out the week later. Have you seen the logo for Annabelle Creation?
No.
It's the exact same as Assassin's Creed. It's hilarious. But anyway, Detroit comes out, Wind River, and those have already been screened somewhat. Well, Wind River probably made festival rounds. But anyway, I just feel like there's nothing at all. Nothing points to this being a success when I was really looking forward to getting into this.
Let me put just a cap on this whole situation. Like I was excited about this movie when it was announced, especially when the cast was announced. And
all right.
This is how far this movie has fallen for me in terms of the heat meter, the excitement. I may not see it. I've now relegated it to I'm going to have to wait and see what the reviews are. And if they are...
What if the reviews were like 60, 65?
I wouldn't go see it.
Really?
I would wait until it came out.
So you're
if it's certified rotten at all, I will not see this movie. There was no... Is that the word? Certified rotten? Certified fresh is the good one.
You would just say rotten or fresh.
If it's rotten at all, even if it's 1 point below
59,
I will never see it.
Never,
not once. Why? It's not worth my time. Here's why people are freaking out and upset about this the most, in my opinion, especially somebody who really does enjoy it. One, it's a huge missed opportunity. Two, if this is a failure, we've been waiting for this. Fans of this have been waiting for a really, really long time, and we don't know when this is going to come again. And third, it doesn't matter if this movie could be, if it is great, it's not going to make any money. They have done such a shitty job.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it anywhere.
No matter what we say, even if it is successful, it's already a failure.
There's no way at all. Like, I think that the franchise, and forgive me for saying this, but it's obscure enough.
Yeah.
And small enough to where if this fails, they're not gonna bother with a reboot. I mean, this isn't a Spider-Man level franchise where like we know that it's gonna turn over here.
Let's do box office predictions.
Okay, so Dark Tower with limited promotional material, at least from my standpoint. The beginning of August, I say that it makes. I'm going to go 35.
I was going to say, I think it struggles to break 30. That is, I mean...
Let me look up the production cost real quick. But I'm looking at it. I see 35.
If it exceeds, here's what I'll tell you to that. If it exceeds 35, if it exceeds 40, that is a massive shock to me. Massive. Like, I will be... Like, that's an upset. That's like Conor McGregor beating Floyd Mayweather.
That'll happen, by the way.
Get my plane tickets now.
Oh, you know the studio behind this, aside from Imagine? This makes a whole lot of sense now. Fucking Sony. Sony blows ass.
Same people that just put out the Emoji Movie.
Yes. Sony sucks. I've been saying it for years. They're the worst fucking movie studio.
Remember when all those leaks happened around
the interview?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of that was, if you don't believe in karma, that would make you a potential believer.
Sony sucks ass. The only thing,
if something like that happened to Disney, I would be like, God, that sucks.
Right.
But with them, especially now looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, fuck those guys. Give us back Spider-Man.
Detroit. Oh, by the way, I was watching Flick Pick. He had a live stream going on last night. People were donating money during the live stream, by the way.
Of course they were.
I'm going to look into it.
Well, first of all, he's a way bigger audience than we do. It's called distributing to scale.
I'm going to look into it. He made
Did I tell you about this like a few weeks ago?
He made a great point, and I agree 100%. He was talking about how overall, even though we're movie fans, movies just suck.
Why?
Because he's like, think about what were your favorite movies aside from Star Wars 2 years ago?
2 years ago?
Like, can you even formulate like what your favorite movies were 2 years ago?
Like, so 2 years ago would have been 2005. Or I'm sorry, 2015.
Yeah. Batman Begins. There you go.
What were my favorite movies of 2015? Shit, I don't even remember what movies came out in 2015. Like it's hard for me to put dates. The movie release dates and the movie trivia schmodown. Fuck you.
I asked myself last night watching that live stream, what was my favorite movie of 2016?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, Arrival.
Hey, you know what I can do that with? TV and music.
Yeah.
I can remember, like, I could rattle off my favorite albums of like the last like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a great point.
You also spend way more time with those things too.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a great point. It's like I still enjoy plenty of movies, but the movies that make their mark on me,
right?
Like when people ask me what's been your favorite movie of the 2000s, like aside from anything directed by Nolan or JJ, it's like Looper, and it's like that's all I got for you. Or like a Spectacular Now or something like that. Like the movies that really like I love.
You know what the movie
and then they're just like, but to you, like when you hear me say Looper, Spectacular Now, someone like you is like, what? Like it's so random and particular. It's not obvious at all.
Do you think that movies are more disposable than we think? Because I talk about it all the time that I think music is very disposable just because of how much and how accessible they are.
I've been weird with movies lately.
Yeah. That's my favorite thing about this podcast is that we can sort of break down the psychology of how we take in this media.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people in this space, they hold movies in such a high regard anyways that sort of breaking them down, their place in our life is
I talked about this on the after party that will be released after this.
After party. Sorry.
Crashing in like a military. I talked about this on the after party, and I was talking about how the Terminator sequels after T2 don't bother me. They just don't. Like, and people hate those sequels. I think they're fine.
That's in like 3.
I mean, I think I agree with everyone that Terminator is fantastic. T2 is great. I love both of those movies, and I agree that no sequel has come near those two, but I don't hate them. Like, if you remove the label Terminator, I enjoy it.
Right.
I think they're fine. And last night, for no reason at all, I was just scrolling through Amazon Video. I put on Terminator Genesis, which I saw in theaters because I reviewed it for Film Beef. And the only reason why I watched it last night was because I am in love with Emilia Clarke. And I wanted to see her do anything before we watch Game of Thrones tonight. And I just don't have a problem with it. Like it's I would give it a medium and I gave it a medium on the Film Beef scale, but I don't hate it. It was just a movie that I had on and I thought it was fine. And I'm like, this is so weird. I'm fine with Terminator Genesis and I can't remember loving Arrival. It's just I've been in a weird place in 2017.
Well, some things just don't leave that same mark. Like I've said it before when I talk about albums, for instance, like I think this is a good barometer. I think To Pimp a Butterfly is one of the greatest musical achievements in the modern era. I never listened to that album. Now, that's just a personal thing. Technically, it is executed very, very well, but I just like, for instance, I like watching Marvel Civil War. I really like watching it.
Captain America?
Yeah. Marvel Civil War. I do not.
That's the comic book series.
I do not like watching Requiem for a Dream. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
But like, I just think those distinctions should be made. They've been talking about on Collider and Schmozo a lot lately, but like this whole thing about gray area criticism and how like it seems like the social media landscape doesn't like that. You either have to love something or hate something,
Yeah.
defend it or fight against it. Like, why can't things just be fine?
Yeah, I agree. To kind of put a cap on this, and then we'll go to TV. The movie that I want to preview, and the movie that I'm definitely going to see over Dark Tower is Detroit. Because
Why?
I'm very much looking forward to it.
How many more times can John Boyega let us down?
When did John Boyega let us down?
That movie that we watched, that crappy movie that we watched?
That was filmed years ago.
Also heard that The Circle wasn't great.
He's in it for like 2 seconds.
Also looks like that, whatchamacallit?
Pacific Rim 2?
Looks like poo-poo.
That's just a dumb trailer.
I'm just saying. That's more for a reaction. But it does it does suck that he's had, he hasn't been in...
I mean...
I know it's just a trailer, but...
I would entertain what you're saying if the Rotten Tomato score wasn't so high and that we didn't have the prestigious director behind it.
I'm just making a statement. It sucks that I'm a huge fan of him as Finn in Star Wars, and I want more of him.
He's the best character in Force Awakens, 100%.
But the two places, like, I wanted that other movie to be great because he's in it. It was really not good.
No, it was not.
I wanted The Circle to be a success because he's in it, and also Tom Hanks, and also Hermione. But I've heard it wasn't great either.
Yeah. No, that doesn't bother me. But I can't wait to see him, and I'm just intrigued by the story. And I really wanted, the way that I wanted Zero Dark 30 to really affect me and grab me, I actually, don't give a shit about that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I really...
Never seen it.
I love The Hurt Locker, and I anticipated, and for some people, Zero Dark 30 is just as good, maybe better than Hurt Locker. For me, it just kind of came and went. It did not affect me in any way. So I'm hoping that this is what grabs me. I mean, when I look at it, I'm thinking, okay, if any movie that I've seen so far this year that isn't a superhero film could be a movie of the year contender, I want it to be this. And I've heard that it's very heavy, and I'm very excited about that because I've been longing for emotional resonance this year, aside from comic book films. So I'm just looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great movie, and I hope that it's one of the year's best because I really love the cast. Will Poulter, who is a phenomenal actor, and he doesn't get a whole lot of credit. The first time that I ever saw him, he played this goofy kid in We're the Millers, but he was great in that movie. And he does a great job in the Maze Runner movie, even though, I mean, that movie's just fine. But anyway, I'm just excited to see him. And I'm also just excited to learn about what happened because I don't have a lot of context for it. So,
did you know I haven't even seen a trailer for this?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll show you one when we go to break. But but yeah, I think it's just going to check a whole lot of boxes. I'm ready for a movie like this finally. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. And that's all I got. Do you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Room 104.
Yeah,
what it's called?
Yeah, dog.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Did you know that Sight and Sound has a YouTube channel? If you didn't, you need to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Sight and Sound, or you can find a link in the description of this podcast. But yeah, if you're wanting more Sight and Sound content, you can get a ton of it over on our YouTube page. There's a lot more content over there. I do music reviews. Ryan talks about movies. We talk about TV, obviously. And yeah, it's kind of a nice little place to go if you need some more sight and sound in your life.
Let's talk about the show that I didn't even know had premiered. But it looks interesting. I watched a trailer or two.
Speaking of this, by the way, follow us on the Stardust app, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know what the Stardust app is, it's an app where the user base, you, me, Jay, can film video reactions to TV episodes and movies. So we both been trying to be very active on Stardust, and
we've partnered with them.
Yeah, that's right. We're verified partners or superstars or favored users, whatever you want to call it, on the app. So we love you, Stardust. But also make sure that you download the apps and follow us. Sight Sound Pod is our username. This was a show that I reacted to yesterday.
Oh yeah,
because it just premiered. For those of you who don't know, Room 104 is a new anthology series on HBO. And it's not anthology in the way that like American Horror Story is, where it's a serialized season. It is episode by episode, similar to what the Twilight Zone was. So this is very much a modern Twilight Zone. And every single episode takes place in this motel room 104, and it's a different story. And I think there's going to be 12 episodes if I looked that up correctly. And they're only like, as far as I know, like 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was like watching a short film when I watched this episode last night, because it was, it was contained in anthology, but very quick. Again, like Twilight Zone.
Kind of reminds me a little bit, just you talking about it. Obviously, it's not necessarily the contained element, but where every story sort of stands alone. Sort of similar to how, and I'm sure it doesn't do these same things, but sort of how Louis does it from season to season, or even Atlanta to a certain extent. They have things that tie things together throughout the season. This probably doesn't have that. Do you think at any point in this show that there might be a common thread that sort of ties things together?
Other than the room itself, no.
Okay.
Based on this particular episode, it was very much about the characters inside, and then the next episode again has completely different characters. So I think the room is the only common denominator, that this room is just mysterious in some way. And based on this first episode, you don't even have context as to why it's about the room. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. It was very much a story about the characters and not the room itself. At least that's what episode 1 was. So I want to talk about the Duplass brothers for a second. I think
Mark Duplass?
Mark Duplass, yes.
From the league.
From the league. Yeah. He plays.
I didn't even know he had a brother.
Mark and Jay.
Oh, yeah.
They're filmmakers.
I forgot about that. I forgot that there was another Duplass. Also, Katie Aselton Duplass.
True. Did she change her last name? Or I think it's just Katie.
I think it's hyphenated.
Star of Legion. Katie Aselton.
She's a star? She's in like 4 of the episodes.
She's the main character's sister, at least. She's no Aubrey Plaza. But
can I give my take? Just all I've seen is a trailer. I haven't seen the pilot. One thing that this reminded me of just watching it, the trailer, was certain aspects of a show that I really, really enjoy quite a bit, 6 Feet Under, just in the sense that there were a lot of cameos. There were a lot of different characters, and I like this sort of exploration of a story around this room. Now, 6 Feet Under did this sort of. There was an overall narrative to the show, but every single episode of 6 Feet Under, it gave the opportunity to tell a new person who had come through this, whatever you want to call it, not a morgue, but what are they called? A funeral home. And you got this sort of, it gave the opportunity to have a lot of cameos. Like the guy that played the main character in How I Met Your Mother was in 6 Feet Under. Like way before he was in that show. And I was like, holy shit.
I can't think of his name right now.
Holy shit, it's that guy. Also,
Josh Radnor.
Also, X-Files did that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
They would just like do these sort of standalone episodes that had nothing to do with the rest of the story.
Right. As far as I can tell, based on the trailer, I don't think any high-profile names are going to be in the show. I know Jay Duplass appears. The next episode 2, has James Vanderbeek, which is dope. So yeah, Mae Whitman, who plays what's her? I can't think of her name. I'm not even playing off the joke on Arrested Development. The girlfriend of Michael Cera. I can't think of her name, but neither can
Anne.
Yes, Egg. Anyway, so just like kind of random people, but not any high profile names.
Wasn't she Job's girlfriend at one point in the season?
Yeah. in season 4. Bees. Come on. That's my best impression, by the way. So anyway, this is right up my alley. I have been.
You like that?
I've been waiting for this type of anthology to come out. I love the Twilight Zone. And I'm really, really looking forward to this series. And it's so easy to digest, too. Like, I wish that we had talked more about it before hitting record, because you could have just sat down and, had it on and it would have flown by. Because again, it was like watching a short film. I mean, it just flew by, and I love the idea of having that kind of like easily digestible show to watch every week. But I want to talk about the Duplass brothers, because yeah, you do get one side of Mark Duplass on the league, but all of the movies that he's made are really, really interesting. Did you see Jeff Who Lives at Home?
Yes.
With Jason Segel?
Yes.
That's a very interesting movie. Very charming movie.
Did he direct that?
They either wrote it or produced it, or he's behind it.
I was not aware of that.
And then most recently, what I loved from them was The One I Love. Did you watch that movie?
Nope.
We reviewed that on Film Beef. It was just we saw it on Netflix, and it's I don't want to spoil it, but you think it's a romantic movie, and then there's like a science fiction twist to it, and it was great. He's also great in Safety Not Guaranteed.
Absolutely. Also a different sort of side to him.
Right.
Sort of sounds to me like maybe he's in this sort of group of up-and-coming directors that are making really interesting, really dynamic films. Also just a dynamic individual in general, like a what's his name? Jordan Peele, to a certain extent.
Yeah, I could see that, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. I listened to him speak at he had a keynote at South by Southwest a couple years ago, and he was sort of talking about the state of filmmaking or whatever. So he is the kind of person that doesn't want to settle. I mean,
right.
he's all about giving us this type of thing. He wants to surprise us. He wants to be original. He wants to be unique, and he wants to stand out. And so him doing this show was enough to get me into it. But now that I was intrigued by the trailer, and the first episode was so much fun to watch, I'm hoping that more people check this out. I was looking on the TV Time app to see how many followers it had, and it's like under 50,000.
Right.
So I don't think this is a high profile show that a lot of people are paying attention to. So I wanted to make sure that we brought it up on the podcast, because again, it's so much fun, and I could see us. If you watch it with me, I could see us definitely talking about it every week.
I think the thing that I'm taking away from this that's the most interesting is this whole discussion about how digestible something like this is. I think in an age where you have things like Netflix and Hulu, maybe not Hulu to a certain extent, but Netflix looming over, casting this huge shadow over how we watch TV with binging and whatnot, we're constantly asking ourselves, like, what is the place of week-to-week television? And I think something like this, even though I haven't watched it yet, it's at least in its concept, sounds like something that is perfect for a week-to-week watch. Like, think about how quickly you could just digest this in a binge setting, which is cool.
I was going to say, that was what I was going to say next, is that, I mean, if this was on Netflix, I'd be done by now.
Exactly. But as sort of, I think it's things like this that make you think it's okay that I have to wait week to week. It's like getting a magazine in the mail or something. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, I've got this.
I mean, there's no hook as far as like, here's what's coming up on the next episode. Like, because it's a separate story. There's
right.
there's no leaning into the next episode. So I'm excited, but it's not like I would love to binge it, but I don't need to binge it.
Right.
But yeah, it is fun to be able to have this kind of show out right now. So especially when it's TV's kind of slow right now. Like,
it is.
To be fair,
there's a lot of stuff that we're anticipating.
To be fair, yeah, fall TV is going to be nuts. Mr. Robot in particular. And I mean, I just said TV was slow, even though we're watching the biggest show on television.
Nobody wants to dance with the devil, if you know what I mean. I mean, nobody really wants to be on while Game of Thrones is on.
That's fair.
And I mean, look, here's the other thing,
except
too.
Defenders.
Here's the other thing, too, that I will say. I'm glad that we sort of randomly stumbled upon this point, but I love the fact that there are these people, these directors like a Jordan Peele, like a Duplass brothers, even like a Donald Glover, who are making incredibly original content. I haven't seen Get Out, but from what I've heard from everybody is just, you know, I haven't seen Get Out yet.
No.
I'm waiting to watch it around Halloween. I'm purposefully holding off.
Okay.
Anyways, I just think that's a perfect time to watch that
Interesting.
movie. Anyways, regardless.
Can't argue that.
Regardless, I love that, with this whole discussion around, original things, blah, 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 blah. Superhero fatigue, blah, 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 blah. I like that there's this little pocket of people that are making original content. Like that's exciting to me. It's exciting to me that they're getting so much praise. It'd be different. I mean, how many things come out that are original and people just shit on so fast? Oh, so you're vaping now? Is that what we're doing?
Keep talking, Jay.
I was trying to elaborate even more, but I ran out. I ran in a cul-de-sac. I had to turn around. Go ahead. Take your time.
I'm done. I'm just doing it while you're talking.
I just tried to make you self-conscious. Original content. It's great. It's great that they're putting this stuff out. What are they going to move on to next? The new Star Wars standalone? Are you going to direct the Obi-Wan movie? The Duplass brothers?
I would rather see the Duplass brothers direct it than Sam Esmail.
Well, you know why I brought that up, don't you? Because they're on that trajectory, it seems like.
I don't know. I don't know. The Duplass brothers kind of strike me like Jordan Peele. They don't care about directing the big stuff.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
so,
the trajectory that they're on, it's like, they get this buzz going because they're making smaller things. And, that means we've got to give them the new...
I wouldn't be surprised if it came out that the Duplass brothers were writing like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
Even though that's already been written. I guess like that type of thing. Like I wouldn't be surprised there.
Right.
But I don't see them directing a superhero movie unless it was just like some weird thing.
Yeah. I
like
think that's
Squirrel
fair.
Girl.
I think that's fair. I mean, the Watchmen show on HBO.
Would you like that if the Duplass brothers
No.
tackled Watchmen?
No, it doesn't have. It's just the Watchmen.
I know.
I want the Authority. Kevin Marks, back me up. The Authority needs to be on HBO.
Alpha Flight. Get on it. I have no idea what that is.
Flight?
I've heard Snap say it.
Canadian X-Men.
Moon Knight.
Absolutely. Fuck yes. Well, look, this has a place in our TV segment. I do want to go back to this point we had touched on earlier about this Watchmen thing. I always thought that we were going to bring this up on Weekly for some reason. I'm actually glad we didn't because it was kind of a non-news story because there was like rumors. I mean, I don't like talking about rumors.
I was actually under the impression that it was real. And then when I heard Damon, when I heard that Damon had never talked to HBO, I was like, okay, what the fuck?
Let me tell you one of the biggest reasons why I didn't want Watchmen to happen. Here's what I've always wanted HBO to do. HBO is of like the big people, I think, in the video distribution platforms, and I mean like movies, Netflix, TV, whatever. HBO needs a superhero thing. Okay. And I think with Game of Thrones going away, I think that it would be great for them to have something. But HBO is the perfect place. We talk all the time about you have Marvel and you have DC. It would be awesome for one of these other comic book companies, Image, Vertigo, somebody to bring something new in and give it a big platform. I don't think movies are a good spot for that. HBO would be a great spot for that. That's why I've always wanted them to tackle something like The Authority. I told you about what The Authority was the other day. It is such an adult type of comic book thing, and HBO is adult television.
Yeah.
It is the perfect spot for something like that. And I think that they can. How awesome would it be for HBO to say, we don't need a Marvel, we don't need a DC. We can lift something up on its own. And my biggest thing with Watchmen, it was sort of like a bigger picture thing, is Watchmen already exists on a pedestal.
Yeah, I know. Sure. Rob Liefeld had an interview with Frosty, and he was talking about how he couldn't say anything, but he was talking about how several of his Image titles are about to come out.
That's awesome.
And that he was sort of waiting until we got to the point in Hollywood where they understood and knew how to make comic book superhero shows and movies.
It's really
and
smart.
He said that based on how successful his Deadpool, obviously he created Deadpool, how successful that was, and Logan and everything else, he was like, now I'm actually comfortable for my babies to be released out into the world. So that's happening. And I'm not aware of this, but what is the biggest Image title? Like, aside from, is it Saga?
I have to look it up.
Is it
Saga? Would be a really, I mean, from what I know of Saga, it would be a crazy thing to do.
He said, without saying it, he said it's the biggest thing, the thing that he's been asked about the most. And I'm not as familiar with Image.
I'm not either.
Invincible, Robert Kirkman's Invincible, Prophet, Spawn is already going to be a thing. Of course, Walking Dead.
Snot Girl.
Huh?
Snot Girl.
Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, he said that the thing he gets asked about the most is what's happening. But since I'm not as familiar with Image, Kevin and Marks, let me know.
Yeah, I was about to say Kevin's going to lose his mind over this whole thing. Also, people have been talking for a long time about a Sandman, something coming on with Sandman as well. Familiar with Sandman?
Somewhat.
Okay.
How do you feel? How do you feel about Robert Kirkman announcing an end to The Walking Dead?
Great. Get it off television.
All right, are we done with TV? Go watch Room 104 Friday nights on HBO.
Yeah, okay, we're about to jump into a break. Before we jump into a break, here's what I need everybody listening to this to do. Even if you're not, like, maybe music's not necessarily your thing here on Sight and Sound, and maybe if it is, that's okay. We're going to be talking about a metal band, and metal is not for everybody, but I need everyone to pause this and go, geez, okay, bless you, or whatever sort of spiritual thing you embrace. I need everybody to pause this after we go to break and go on your music streaming service of choice or YouTube, whatever, and listen to the band August Burns Red. I need you guys to have context of this discussion, form your own opinions about the music, and then we'll talk about them. We will be right back.
August Burns Red's dope.
It is hot outside. It's summertime. You're going to the beach. You're going to the lake. You're going on hikes. Whatever you're doing. Maybe it's too hot to go outside. I have no idea. But I'll tell you what. It's so hot that you've got those nasty, gross pit stains and all those old T-shirts. So we've got you covered. Go to sightsoundpod.com. Pick up your Sight and Sound gear. We've got a summer line coming out with some incredible designs. I am biased because I designed them. But that's okay. They do look good, I promise you. There's a lot of great stuff over there. We're always releasing new T-shirts. We have a new limited design that will only be available for the month of July, and we've got a new limited design coming every single month. But go to sightsoundpod.com and pick up your T-shirts. You're going to feel good about yourself because not only are you supporting the podcast, not only are you doing your part to help make the podcast better, you're going to look fantastic while supporting the show. Sightsoundpod.com. Pick up your T-shirts today.
All right, so we've talked about a lot of musical genres on this podcast, but strangely, and maybe we've dabbled in it a little bit, but not to this extent. But we don't show a lot of love to metal on this podcast. And the reason why, there's a few reasons why. It's not because we don't enjoy it, but we love aggressive music. Maybe we like aggressive music, but it's just not the genre that's as prolific as it was.
Yeah.
You know, we can only cover in this music section one big topic, and the genre of aggressive music is just not as prominent as it once was.
You're getting Luke riled up here.
Oh, I know, for sure. It's relevant. No, it's not. And I mean, we have a history with this, but we're going to be talking about August Burns Red today because here's why.
Is August Burns Red going to be in the Jigsaw movie soundtrack?
I don't know. Maybe. I have no idea. The reason why is because they just dropped their first single off of their upcoming album.
Have you said the name of the band yet?
August Burns Red. Yeah, I said it. Their new album, Phantom Anthem, which is just a terrible name. It's hard to say. It comes out October 6th. The song's called Invisible Enemy. And the reason they're relevant enough to talk about is because they're actually a pretty big band. They're a big band in terms of what they are in their own musical genre. They were actually nominated for a Grammy last year.
I was going to say, I think they're one of the biggest bands in this genre.
I mean, look, here's what I will say. There are other bands that we could have spoke about that could have easily, like if Architects, Bring Me the Horizon, Of Mice and Men all released albums the same day as this, they would have been lower on the totem pole. They are one of the bigger bands, 100%. But I just figured we'd talk about it, man. And I think they deserve at least to be talked about. Here's what I want to ask you. Here's how I want to start this thing off. I've known you for a long time. I've known your musical taste for a long time, and you've liked aggressive music. We both do. But metal and metalcore, which for people that don't know, metalcore is a genre of music that blends metal and hardcore together. Metalcore music isn't necessarily a music genre that I would associate with you. I think there's artists that you like and that you enjoy, but I wouldn't say that's your go-to music genre. Am I correct?
Rattle off a few bands
that I think you enjoy that I would consider a metalcore band.
Yeah.
I think The Devil Wears Prada.
Yes.
I think Architects.
Yes.
I think Oh Sleeper was a band that we were talking about.
Yes.
Here's where I'm gonna As Lay Dying.
Yeah.
Here's where
Somewhat.
I'm gonna, and those are bigger bands.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I'm gonna like draw the line in the sand and be like, this is where we're getting into rogue territory. For Today.
Love them.
Really? Interesting. Okay. I'm going to try to go even more obscure than that. Every Time I Die.
Yeah.
When can I stump you here? Let me
I don't know. These are all bands that I'm seasoned with.
You seasoned them. You seasoned the
I've
chicken.
seasoned all of these bands.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Throwing you off here.
Okay. Well, what do you think about
Texas
August
in
Burns?
July?
What do you think about August Burns? Well, they're just a diet version of August Burns Red.
So you want me to just give you my experience with August Burns Red?
No, we'll save that for a minute. Just
Okay.
the genre of metalcore in general, your journey through it, was it more difficult to get into the genre of metalcore as opposed to like maybe screamo and stuff like that, just post-hardcore?
I mean, metalcore ran parallel with everything else.
It did.
To me, it was all one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I know that it's not. I mean, I was listening to metalcore, screamo, post-hardcore,
Right.
whatever you want to call it. I was listening to all of that stuff parallel.
Yeah.
So I have a healthy mix of all of it. I would say
I always knew the journey being like, okay, I'm going to start out with like a band like The Used or My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
And then I get into bands that have a lot of singing, like an Under Oath. And then you venture into your Norma Jeans or something like that.
I would say the genre of music that I care about the least is just metal.
Okay.
Probably.
Just straight, legit metal.
Like there's a few bands that I'm like, yeah. And I'll get in a mood. Like sometimes I can get in Trivium moods.
Oh, really?
With that first full length that they had. Yeah. But yeah, metalcore is way more accessible to me than metal. I mean, I think metal's more, I guess accessible isn't the word, but for me, appealing is the better
metalcore
word.
Is once you really dive into it, and
I think metal is more accessible than metalcore.
Really? I was going to say the opposite. I think metalcore is a little bit more accessible because when you really dive into it, we're going to talk about this in just a minute, but it's a lot more formulaic, I think.
Because you can like associate, like some of metal's fans are just like rednecks. Like even like redneck people love metal. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it depends on what type. And see, this is the hard part of this conversation. Let me just address one thing real quick. Metal fans suck ass. Okay? Like they are, and I've spoke about this on the music show, and I fucking dare people to argue with me about this. I've lived through this shit. They are so fucking tribal.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's Jesus Christ. It's annoying, and like I guarantee you, we are going to get comment if we were to like break this out and put this up as like a Sight and Sound Bite, we would get comments like, well, Norma Jean, they're actually not a metalcore band. Fuck off. Like, I just don't care about that shit. So
I love Norma Jean,
so when we go into those, when we're saying metal, we're speaking very broadly.
Pantera.
Pantera is a good. Well, actually, Ryan, they're more of like a doom metal band. No, they're not, but they're more of like a southern metal.
Maylene and the Sons of Disaster.
Look, yeah, I don't know. I just never really picked you for much of a metalcore guy. But you know what? Now that we're talking about it, I think it does. I don't know why I had that preconceived notion.
I don't know either.
Okay, so who are some of your favorite newer metalcore bands now? And maybe not necessarily newer, but today.
I don't have any newer.
Okay,
but
today,
Sleeper.
Today, they're really not putting out much music. But today, who are you getting excited for when an album drops? Like, and if I'm like, hey, did you hear such and such put out a single?
It would only be Architects.
Bring Me the Horizon. Would you consider Bring Me the Horizon? Yeah, they're becoming much more expansive.
Yeah, no.
Are you excited about the new Plot in You album?
I am now.
Based on that single.
When does that album come out?
I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, they were nowhere near my radar.
Hell no.
So
yeah,
you were talking about those big names before. Architects would be the only one that would get me excited.
Absolutely. One of my favorites, I think last year, probably the best heavy music album that came out last year was their album.
You said you didn't like it on the way over to your house.
No, I said the one before that one. The one that we were looking at was the one that came out before that one. The one that came out last year was...
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it was.
Our Gods Have Abandoned Us.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's. I want to get your take. You've heard me talk about it before. I've talked about it on music, but I want your take on on what your perspective is on the take. No, your perspective on what the state of metalcore music is today.
Well, for me, it's become more irrelevant. It's kind of dying off for me. Like,
where did it come from for you? Like, what was your perspective when we were coming up through the scene? Because, like, I feel like I talk about it all the time how big it was. Like, how big was it?
Like I said, it was as big as everything else. Yeah. I mean, one of the first bands that got me into this type of music was Prada.
Right.
So,
and they were massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
And they still are, but not to us because they've kind of evolved. And so I think they have their own audience now. And I think that the audience that they had is no longer with them primarily.
Right.
At least that's my take on it. But Luke Jaggers will probably argue that. But
We Came as Romans, another band that I probably should have thrown in the mix. A Day to Remember also dabbles in metalcore elements from time to time. There are definitely
but I would never call them.
I wouldn't either.
I would never call either one of those bands metalcore.
I wouldn't either.
But yeah, I mean it was just as big as everything else. So it was thriving at one point, and like the way that Screamo had, it died off. So, I mean, like I said, it just runs parallel to me.
And to give context for people that are just not familiar with this, back in around 2005, 2006, 2007, you had bands that were incredibly abrasive. I mean, if you have no context of what we're talking about and you were listening to some of these bands, I mean, they are very, very aggressive. These bands were debuting albums on the Billboard charts.
Yeah.
And now there is like a big asterisk to that because you have to take into consideration that music in general wasn't being as purchased, so it was easier for bands to appear on.
Where do you put Killswitch?
Oh, 100% a metalcore band. Like one of the definitive metalcore bands, one of the biggest metalcore bands.
Mudvayne?
Nah, I would say they're more of a new metal band with like progressive metal tendencies. Look, I'm that asshole that was going to be in the comment section.
I'm just trying to think of, even though I made the joke, being on the Jigsaw soundtrack, I was thinking about those heavier bands that were able, Slipknot too, has to be mentioned.
What's funny is Slipknot over time actually started embracing more ideas, I think, of metalcore. Like, I forget the album. There was one album that they did, I think the album before their most recent one, where they started embracing more elements of formulaic metalcore. Like you could, like there were like there's always been breakdowns.
Aren't there
Slipknot
stories
songs.
of when they transitioned into that where like Corey Taylor fucking hated the fans?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I've heard stories where he just made fun of the fans, like to their face on stage when that was happening. But anyway, remind me, is August Burns Red? They were a Christian band, right?
They still are.
I was gonna say, okay, that's what I thought, because they're one of the big bands on. Are they still on Solid State?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this most recent album comes out on Solid State or not. They were, I believe, on Razor and Tie. They were on another label for a little bit.
Okay.
The Slipknot album that I was talking about was All Hope Is Gone. Really. They've always had elements of like, they've always had breakdowns in songs, of course, but I think they really And it could have very well been that they were trying to maybe cash in on a potential trend, but to me, I was like I was noticing more that some of their songs were a little bit more formulaic that fit more with like a metalcore song structure.
Right. So anyway, August Burns Red over the years.
August Burns Red over the years. I want to do this sort of similar to how we did our Linkin Park discussion.
Okay.
Let me just say this. When August Burns Red first burst onto the scenes, here's the thing that I noticed about them. One, they were incredibly talented, and they still remain a very talented band, a very technical metalcore band. Wild song structures, especially on that first album. Very technically proficient on their guitars and their drums. Matt Greiner is an incredible drummer. One of the best drummers, I think, in all of heavy music.
He is someone that... He had a name.
He is more of a standout in this band than the lead singer is.
Yeah, I know. He's the only, maybe in the entire genre, he might be one of the only band members that I can call out by name.
He is the Travis Barker of metalcore music. Is
Sure.
that a fair statement?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, Joey Jordison of Slipknot was
Sure.
also could have been thrown in that mix as well. But their first
R.I.P.
album, yeah, no, he didn't die.
Oh.
Did you really think he died? You're thinking of Paul Gray.
Could have been
He
one
was
of
a
those.
bass player. He's no longer in the band.
That's right. Thank you.
Jay Weinman?
No, Williams.
Yeah, Jay Williams, the drummer of Slipknot now. Their first album, Thrill Seeker, came out in 2005, the year I graduated high school. How do you feel about that album?
I can't have the Linkin Park conversation about ABR.
That's fine. That's fine. Do you have any recollection of that album at all?
No,
Okay, that's fine.
I can only talk about ABR as a thing. I can't go album by album.
That's fine. I just want it for context. That first album came out, produced by Adam D.
Mhm.
of Killswitch Engage.
Yeah.
Also went on to produce a ton of stuff. But
Under Oath,
yeah,
Prada,
exactly.
Death Throne.
Did he do Dead Throne? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah,
Great album.
it is a great album.
Such a great album.
It's fantastic.
That album for me was sort of a kick in the nuts just because of what it was. Not a lot of people doing things as technically proficient as they were. The other thing that I noticed about that band, they never, and I appreciate this about them, they never look like a metal band of any sort. They would come on stage wearing flip-flops and Hollister polos, and I love that about them. I love that they're
the Kanye of metalcore.
I love that. That's a good note there. I love that they were. I mean, they brought the mosh 100%. They still do. Not much has changed.
Did you know? I might get a little know-it-all here. I can't believe I'm doing this because we're talking about music. But did you not realize that Death Throne was like the first album that they recorded where it wasn't actually direct in? It was like
more analog.
They recorded they recorded the amps and everything instead of because that's what Sturgis always did.
It was
Joey
way Sturgis
more
is the king of fake sounds,
overly
Let's put it that way.
producing.
Yes,
yeah, and it was much more live.
And you can tell
with that on
that album has
of Adam D. Yeah,
that album has way more character to it.
Definitely.
You know what's funny about that? Just a side note on this conversation. The funny thing about you bringing that up is one of the reasons a lot of people don't like working with Adam D is because he is a perfectionist at doing it analog.
Have you watched all those Under Oath DVDs?
100%.
Where he forces them if there's one note that's wrong. Yeah,
that's why they didn't work with him anymore.
That's why it sounds so good, though.
Absolutely. Their second album, Messengers. Here's what I'll say about this album. This album is so over the top heavy. The production on this album, when I bought this CD, it was so. You know how back in the day you'd have CDs and you'd have a volume that you would turn your, like in my car right now, it never goes past 11 in my car. Spotify has it built into where it regulates the sound across the board. I always had to turn the CD down way lower. It is so loud and so over the top and so fucking heavy. I love this album. The other day, to prepare for this, I decided to listen to their first 3 albums from front to back consecutively. And I knew this over the years. I had sort of grown out of this band because I was like, they're kind of not much has changed. Listening to these 3 albums back to back to back, this and for context, that is essential. So 22 plus 12 is what, 34? That's 34 songs back to back to back. I went brain dead.
So the thing that we have yet to address, even though we're like 18 minutes into this, the thing that we have yet to address is that, like, we've had conversations about this off air about how O Sleeper and how I favor them because for the most part they don't change, but it's because they have that perfect recipe. Like O Sleeper, I hear what O Sleeper sounds like, and I'm like, yes, that's for me. So I have no problem that they hardly ever move around. Like, I love the idea of having, like,
not a lot of bands in this genre do.
I know. And I love the idea of Bring Me the Horizon being an exception. Prada, even.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Every Prada album sounds very different.
I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree with you. Well, here's what I will say about Prada is I throw them in the same boat that I do with a lot of the metalcore bands that I do hold in high regard. So I
think the Prada albums sound the same because of the fact that, like, they have the same vocalists.
No, I don't agree. I think we're saying the same thing, but from completely different perspectives. Let me just say this. So when I listen to a lot of these bands that have been around for a long time, Every Time I Die is a great example. Every Time I Die, when you go into all of their albums, much like a band like Converge, even Architects, you know exactly what you're getting into. Yeah. Exactly. Now, what I go into those albums looking for is I just need, and what I do notice over each album, you're never going to get a bad album, but you're going to get the most tiniest of changes to just make something a little bit fresh. Like, for instance, with Every Time I Die, this most recent album was probably their most heavy. The one before it was probably their most punk sounding in terms of just raw around the edges. The one before that was maybe just their most chaotic. They're just slight changes. Here's the biggest problem with a lot of these music genres. When you listen to these albums from front to back, they become one note. Like, if you are at all not in the mood to listen to this music, it becomes very tiresome. Yeah, after a very short amount of time.
So, like, to keep up with the comparison of Prada, album to album, they feel like they are exploring their genre.
Yeah,
ABR never
within their circle.
It never feels like ABR is exploring. So, what I will say is that over the years, I haven't anticipated or listened to an album every time that it's come out, but I understand them very much. I go through phases. So the fact that you brought them up and the fact that I knew that we were going to talk about it on Weekly, I listened to them first time probably in like 2 or 3 years. I had a fucking blast. And for those of you who don't know, heavy music makes me laugh because I just think
it's one of my favorite reactions.
I just think a lot of the things that are done in heavy music, they just make me laugh. Like pinch notes and things like that.
Like,
yeah. Things like that. And just random like metal one-liners and just like heavy growls. They just make me laugh because I think it's funny.
It's also very like cliche from time to time. Like, and that's probably the worst thing about the genre in my opinion. And I want to address this too. So Luke likes this music a lot.
Yeah.
And Luke, and I'm not trying to be patronizing at all, but Luke is younger than us. It has to be said. And there are times where he'll be like, oh, what do you think about this band or this band? And I hate saying this and I hate this approach because I was in this position when I was younger. People that were older than me would say, I've heard this before. I've heard it over and over and over again. And that's kind of how I feel. And again, I don't mean to be patronizing about it, but it is like, it's not new to me. It's not fresh to me. And when I hear this music genre to go over like trope after trope after trope, it is so refreshing when a band like Bring Me the Horizon explores with just adding electronics to their music.
Right.
And that's one thing that Architects did on this last album. They weren't doing the same things that Bring Me the Horizon were doing, but like they would just have like a synth pad to add like some texture into the songs.
You and I have different definitions of mood music. but I would
Mood
say
music.
mood music.
Mood music.
I would say ABR is mood music for me. Like
it sets a particular mood. Yeah.
Because I've been listening to ABR. I'm right now. I'm in an August Burns Red phase, and that also means I've been going back on the way here. I went back and started listening to No Sleeper. I guarantee when I get back in the car, I'm going to listen to Dead Throne on the way home. Like I am in a mood. Right. Because of August Burns Red. And the point that I was going to make is that I was getting hyped. I was laughing my ass off listening to ABR's most recent record, having a great time. I know your exact points as well, which is that they are tired. They are very one note. I totally get it. And that's why I have to be in the mood because, like I said, it's been years since I've sat down and listened to ABR because I know what it is already. Yeah. But I don't want to take anything away from them because I do think they're extremely technical and talented and they can get me in the feels from time to time. But overall, I mean, it just depends on the day.
100%.
Just depends on the day. So this isn't really like a black and white, like are they bad, are they good kind of discussion at all.
I'm gonna close the book on kind of shitting on them. I do want to address one other thing too. Any August Burns Red fan that's listening to us right now is screaming because they're like, well, they have changed over. They have added some interesting elements to their music, but they always fall like. For instance, we talked about they've added like some interesting, like almost, I don't know, Latin rhythms in passages of their music, but then they just transition right back into what you expect from them. And those things to me are just like, it's almost like a garnish on a dish. Like, okay.
August Burns Red knows that they are guilty of exactly what we're talking about.
I'm about to get into that, yeah.
It is all over their album artwork.
100%.
The fact that they are still, I was laughing my ass off. The fact that they are still using the exact same logo and design, it's a brand, and they are very much aware of that. That's why it's always the same.
This is where I want to transition into what I appreciate about the band. While I've grown tired of it, and I have gotten sort of out of it. First of all, they're an incredibly prolific band. I think this is like their 7th or 8th album. I'm going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to be their 7th album. That's great. After so many bands that we've listened to over the years have broken up, they're doing their reunion tours or their, all that shit. They've stuck to it. And I can appreciate that. And it is difficult to make a living as a band, especially a band that is as abrasive as August Burns Red. So I applaud that. I think that's great. Again, that comes with the criticism, I think. Yeah. But I always joke that, the metalcore band that was super heavy can't wait for their album when they introduce singing. They've also never really done that.
No.
They've never done that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm kind of ready for them to do that.
I thought that they did have a couple songs really introduced it.
There might have been like a teeny tiny bit.
Maybe I'm not remembering that
It's never been a thing. It wasn't like Mumford and Sons plugging in.
And this isn't actually what I'm talking about, but it just so happened to remind me that Jeremy McKinnon of A Day to Remember does that guest spot on their most recent album, not the new one coming out, but
yeah. And so I don't want people to get confused that there aren't things that I appreciate about this band and that I respect about them, because there are. But
when does this new album drop? Because the single came
out in October 6th.
God, that's forever away.
I know. So we've been talking this whole time about August Burns Red. We should probably talk about this new song. What did you think of it? What did you think of this Invisible Enemy song?
I mean,
I could. A cool music video. Did you see the music video?
No, I mean, I could tell you my thoughts, but I would basically just be recycling everything we've already talked about.
Well, that's the point. You think there's nothing new here?
I had fun listening to it, without a doubt. But it is August Burns Red, absolutely.
Here's the funny thing about how this came into my knowledge of it even being released. Like most music, especially of this music genre, Luke told me about it. He gave me 3 songs to listen to, and he wanted to know which one I cared the most about, and it was actually this one. It was kind of funny because I hadn't really been listening to much August Burns Red.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I really enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, it sounds like they're doing some cool stuff, like stuff that I used to appreciate. And that was my thoughts on it. And then I was like, maybe I need to re-listen to some of the stuff. After re-listening to the first 3 albums and then going back to this, I was like, yeah, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. That was, I could have listened to any song and been like, oh yeah. So it was important for me to go back and taste the flavor again.
Yeah.
But are you going to check out the album when it comes out?
100%.
Absolutely. Now that we have this podcast, we're reviewing shit on YouTube. You want to do a YouTube review on it with me?
Yeah.
Okay, we could do that.
Dude.
All right, sweet. So, look, you guys don't know it, but I had to pause this to go outside because what is happening outside?
Your neighbor set something aflame, and now I think I hear fire trucks
Yeah.
and people screaming.
People are yelling outside.
Oh, God. What?
Should we pause this for
might
a
get
second?
really bad.
Let's pause this for a second. We'll give you an update. Nothing happened.
Okay.
It was a false alarm. No pun intended.
It was literally like 5 minutes ago that we paused this, so
Yeah,
we
no.
just came straight back.
So we'll let you guys know what we think about it. It'll be fun to do a little review together.
Okay.
All right, guys. Eric is concerned about the t-shirts. But if you want
We already
t-shirts right
talked-
now,
Oh,
I know.
okay,
But if you want t-shirts right now, you can go to sightsoundpod.com, pick up your t-shirts. There should be a new design up August 1st for the August exclusive. I love everything that we've put out so far, but I'm ready for October to get here, October 1st, for when we drop the new line. But you can go there and check our stuff out. At Sight Sound Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you're subscribed to the Facebook page. No, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube page. Join the Facebook group. You can find me at J Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. I want you to plug your stuff, and I want you to tell people what you have coming out on the feed this week, because this is episode 2 of a 6-day consecutive release.
What do I have coming out?
Don't you have a movie show coming out this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know what it is yet.
I'm just saying. You have
People
have a movie show to look forward to.
Thursday I will have a movie show. If it just depends on how. If there's a lot of news, then I'll do a solo episode. But if there's nothing going on, I'll put out another episode of the movie bucket list with Chris Hartwell is up next. My good buddy. He's been on the Schmozno show a couple times. He makes videos for them, and he also appears on The Heartbeat, which is his own YouTube channel. Love that guy. So that might come out this week or next week. It just depends on how busy the movie news is.
But we have a 6-day slate of stuff. Started with Sunday, our Game of Thrones recap. Make sure you're checking that out if you're watching Game of Thrones. Sight and Sound Weekly on Monday when you're listening to this, hopefully. Tuesday, bonus Sight and Sound music episode, interview with our buddy Volpe. Wednesday, Q&A after party. Thursday is Sight and Sound movies. And then Friday is the Sight and Sound music show proper.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. Again, make sure you check us out on Stardust and join in on the fun in the Facebook group. Link is in the description of this podcast.
That's it. Let's open this shit up. Side to side, front to back. Get your mosh on. See you guys later.